Ron Kinsley,
Here.
Mark Helwig,
Yes.
Ed Peters,
Yes.
Chris Rusk,
Here.
Brian Bissonnette.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Let the record indicate we have a quorum. 3 people are here and 2 are virtual. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the
of the United States of America
And
to the
and
republic
republic stands one nation under God, indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Number 4, certification compliance open meeting laws.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Number 5 is the meeting agenda. The agenda is set. Number 6, public comment. If you wish to speak, we ask you to try to stay close to 3 minutes, depending on how many people want to speak. And we ask you to fill out a paper so that we know what you want to speak upon. The first person that filled out a paper and returned it in to me would be Nancy. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. Thank you. Please state your name and your address when you get up to the podium, please.
Nancy Schreier, 10777 North Namakagon Lane, Hayward, Wisconsin. I just have one request, and I wish on the behalf of all of our neighbors to respectfully ask the Public Works Committee to protect the Namakagon River and the area homeowners who live right in that area from further expansion of the airport. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? We have Linda Zilmer, virtual.
Yes, she is. Ms. Zilmer, did you want to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. Wanted to speak to 3 agenda items tonight. One of them was the discussion on written correspondence. And if I recall from last month, that had to do with maybe like a civics project where letters were sent in from a school. And so it's really maybe 2 different things. It's how do you respond to students, and also how do supervisors respond in writing? And maybe this could be discussed here and also at administration. I know, Mr. Kinsley, I appreciate that when I send an email to you, you just acknowledge it and thank me for for submitting input, where I know a lot of other supervisors don't reply at all. And so, in responding in writing or responding to students, it's probably just worth a discussion, if not policy. Then moving on to my policy issues, one of them had to do with the out-of-county vehicle question. And I think when policy was written, it did not anticipate that employees would be taking vehicles out of county. Most employees resided in the county. And I know that law enforcement has made its case. There might be other positions that case could be made, but I just am curious or a little bit concerned that at what point is this a benefit that should be provided to all people who live out of county, if there are, county vehicles involved with what they do. And then the last thing had to do with the county considering changing from vacation and sick pay to paid time off, and how that's carried forward. I would hope the county would spend a little more time looking at family medical leave is a requirement. Vacation and sick pay is not. And you can treat those separately as far as requiring scheduling to sustain operations, as well as what can be carried over. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else virtual? Okay, thank you. We'll move forward then. Number 7, consider the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, which was December 13th. Is there any corrections, adjustments on the minutes as presented?
I moved for approval of the minutes from the December 13th meeting, please.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Helwig to approve the minutes as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 8, consider of mail-in correspondence procedures. Discussion and possible action. Any words of advice on our administrator?
The only words of advice I would have is depending on who receives it, if a board member receives it, this is not going to be a real straightforward advice, but depending on the topic, forward it to the department head that would be most capable of answering the question.
Yeah.
And ask them to respond to it. I know the correspondence that you had received wasn't necessarily straightforward. It was asking if it's asking for factual information that a department head can share, that's one thing. But some of the content of those letters was asking for almost an opinion or a justification for why something was the way it was, which is a little more difficult to respond to without having some sort of who's the one to make that type of response. I didn't understand these were student letters, so it's not. But like the public comment, some correspondence the board receives is from constituents looking for feedback, and then I would just encourage the board member to respond directly if they can, or forward it to a department head that can.
I would agree with that. I think that these two letters that we had before us were a bit difficult to follow the track of what they were trying to ask. But I think they do deserve a response, but it probably would be best to have that go to the department head that would be in control.
The other suggestion, this came from another board member, not in this committee, but that if we know it's a student effort like that, to respond, or maybe just offer to have a department head who can answer the questions, offer to come to the class and.
Yes, they are.
To have a department head offer to visit with the class directly rather than respond in writing.
Thank you. Mr. Rusk or Mr. Do you have any comments regarding it?
Nope, I'm good.
Mr. Helwig?
I agree with the administrator. Thank you.
Well, when I read these two letters, I didn't know they were from students, but I guess I'll share them with our highway commissioner and he can choose to respond to them, or I will. All right, thank you. Number 8, maintenance department report. Mr. Hagberg had put together a report. If you had a chance to read it, anybody have any questions or concerns or something that wants to be addressed? Hearing none, we'll move on. Number 10, Sawyer County Airport, Hayward Aviation. Mr. Leslie.
First of all, any questions on my report?
You did a good job putting it together. Thank you. Any highlights you want to bring up? please?
A few noteworthy things. Just today, we had Barnum Gate service up to the airport. I know that it's always difficult trying to keep all of our 4 motorized gates running at the airport. Barnum Gate came up and serviced all 4 gates, so we should be in excellent condition moving into winter. But keeping the gates in operation in the snow gets to be a challenge. But we should be in good shape referencing that. I have not got a chance to meet with Mike and Andy on the year yet for our numbers for the airport and the operations. What I can report is that I know that Hayward Aviation, the FBO, generated revenue and a share back to the county in excess of anything they had in the past. So for all intents and purposes, it was a good year at the airport from a business standpoint. So we'll be able to report on those, I'm assuming, in the future, but I don't know how much reporting we do to the committee. We used to do a lot, but now with Mr. Alvarado and with as administrator, I don't know how much it comes back to committee anymore.
That's fine. Can you touch a little bit on the master plan?
Well, I think Andy was going to kind of tackle the brunt of this tonight. I'll let him go.
Yeah, just, I think it's in the manager's report. The next meeting or the next step in the process is what they call a public involvement workshop. That'll be held on 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom on Tuesday, March 5th. So that would be in here. They'll be going through the draft documents that the consultant has prepared, and then gathering public response, public input, and sharing that dialogue with them. The first two meetings were gathered essentially analytical data and user input as to the experiences at the airport. And since that time, the consultants have been putting together all of the, I guess what I would call industry data, what's happening in aviation with the size of the planes that are flying and how that's changing, as well as analyzing our current traffic at the airport based on flight plans and discussions with users of the airport. And then there'll be a fourth meeting, another public meeting, public involvement meeting, probably in the May-June timeframe is what they anticipated, depending on how the March event goes. I guess the other thing I wanted to mention, as long as Frank is here, that I think it'd be good to talk after the meeting. I've talked to the consultants just briefly about maybe doing, having them involved with you to get something in the newspaper to explain the master plan process and how it's going in advance of the March 5th meeting. So there's a little bit better understanding of what the master plan is and the process that they go through to put it together.
I believe the format of our meeting on the 5th, it's not going to be a formal setting like this where there's a call. We're not going to have a quorum for committee members to speak of. I believe that we are planning on being here the whole time period between 5:30 and 7:30. So I just wanted to let folks know, whether they're trying to get out of work, whatever it is, that we're going to be here that entire time. The consultants are going to be here to be able to take input from the public, and it can go longer if necessary. So people don't have to be here specifically at 5:30. It's more of an informal opportunity to talk.
Perhaps you could state who's going to be here, as in we're going to be here, the aviation.
The consultants, the Kaufman Associates and Becker, as well as I believe
Becker
somebody from
Hoppy
the
will be
Bureau of Aeronautics.
I don't think any of the PAC members are probably going to be here if they want to, but they're not going to be here to speak. The people who are going to be speaking is primarily going to be the engineers on the project. Hopefully me, not as much. I mean, I'm going to be there, but I'm going to let the professionals do it.
I plan on being there also.
Mark will probably be there.
Thank you, Mark. And master plan is on the website. So if people want to see it, they certainly have a chance to do that.
All the draft chapters in the process and the Q and FAQ are on. It's a specific website for the master plan, suracounty.airportstudy.net.
I just want to jump in and say that they have put together a very, very informative process and everything. We were given a booklet, which all the information is on the website. It's very informative.
Thank you.
One of the concerns that I have is if we do get new committee members, it'll be interesting this spring. We'll have to probably backtrack a little bit because this is a pretty long, drawn-out process of the beginning, middle, and end. So I know before we started the master plan process, an individual from the State Bureau of Aeronautics actually came up and presented to committee, Matt Messina. I believe it was February of 2022. he actually made a presentation to committee kind of explaining the master plan process. So if that does happen, it's going to happen right in the midst of this too. So we might have to have an agenda item or maybe a Q&A with any new board supervisors on committee to kind of get them up to speed on the project.
We'll deal with that after the elections in April. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions on the master plan or the information Mr. Leslie has brought forward?
Is there any sort of contingency plan for the people that live along the river? I mean, there's obviously growing concern there, just looking at the audience tonight.
What do you mean by contingency plan?
Well, I mean, there's obviously people that aren't going to want to just give up their land. I mean, what is there any other plan for that if they don't want
There,
it?
the master plan is, there's no plan. How would I say? This was not precipitated by an expansion or any outlines of an expansion. Now, I hedge those that I probably expect that the consultant might show up at the end of the process or at some point when they turn over their findings to the committee here, the Public Works Committee, and suggest some opportunities for expansion. And then you'll have to deal with those when those come in, but there is no identified expansion or parcels that the county is eyeballing to buy or anything like that that is precipitated the master plan effort. Now, I understand the public, it's reasonable to believe that, or because that's where the last master plan ended up with some expansion of the airport. So, but we didn't give them any marching orders or any direction as part of the undertaking of the master plan. We're at the point from the timing of when the last master plan was done that the state has told us it's time to update our master plan. So they bring on a consultant through the Bureau of Aeronautics that we sign off on, but undertake the process of updating the plan, and they have their own process that they follow. Does that answer your question, Mr. Rusk?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Maybe one thing we could touch on would be, how do they rate the airport for different sizes? That was a question that was asked. Someone asked me. Can you explain that a little bit, please?
Well, and then in the hundreds of pages that Mr. Helwig so eloquently put, that it is discussed in detail on the internet, on the web page. And there's a little bit of misconception out there about, where we're at or where we're headed. Sizing of airports in reference to, the communities or what their traffic volumes. There's a lot that goes into it. The big thing right now that we're doing is just acquiring all the technical data, who's using the airport, what infrastructure there needs to be there for the current fleet mix use of what's coming in and out. That's what we're trying to identify.
Yeah, maybe just to give the quick answer is we don't decide that.
I understand that.
The state, based on the volume of aircraft coming in and the size of the aircraft, they classify airports whether they're basic GA or medium GA or large GA. And so they've determined we're medium GA, and that's strictly they assign us that. And I understand in the draft documents it references the airport as being a large GA. And that, again, that's not something we've said, hey, we want to be a large GA. The consultants are projecting that based on the traffic we're already getting and what they anticipate will happen over the next 20 years.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just want to say that any of the public that have concerns, I would really hope that they come to that meeting in March. I think all their questions will be answered and they will understand much better what the master plan is about. Thank you.
One final note, I put it in my report as well, is that we are going to be sending out mailers on this. It's going to be publicly noticed in the paper. I actually already have the draft that Andy and I need to approve for the graphics for the invite, but I'm going to be working with Land Records and going around the property owners adjacent to the airport on all circles on all sides. The last airport expansion that we did in 2013, I think that there was 13 different land acquisitions in that project. There's a lot of history with that too. And I hope that we could do a better job this time, inviting the neighbors to come out, actually give them something in the mail from Sawyer County that invites them to come and be a part of the process. And we're going to do that for all the hangar users as well, and the tenants and hangar lessors at the airport too.
I think that'd be a very good gesture.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, let's move on. Number 11, Highway Commissioners Report.
Thank you. The crews are still continuing with brushing on state and county along with completing patchwork when weather permits on county and state roadways. Crews have still been performing snow and ice control on these small little storms we've been having. A lot of new employees, so that we're still trying to train. It's been a struggle, but we're getting there. Just a winter maintenance budget update. We did finish the year roughly around 800,000, which is over our budget of 635. But looking back at the 5-year average, we're right around that 700,000. And with our new budget, I think we're going to be fine, with the snow last year. But our WDF storm damage cleanup was submitted to the state on 12/28. That was all the cleanup from the winter storm damage. We submitted $154,696, which that'll bring our general maintenance budget below. I applied for the LRIP County W North project. I submitted that to WISDOT for funding. The project detail includes a wedge to correct any deficiencies prior to a placement of a 2-inch asphalt surface. The total project's roughly 5.92 miles from State Highway 70 to County B. I did have a meeting with LCO and SEH to discuss the funding opportunities for the roundabout project. LCO is looking at applying for funds to help cover the county's portion of the project, which we did put that on hold right now because we're going to wait to see if we get our funds from the STP rule. And then we're going to go back and look at some safety plans that they can fund for too also and help us.
Okay.
So we'll be discussing again probably as soon as we hear, probably in February, March, we should know.
We'll just keep it on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay. I did complete a 5-year road plan with estimates, and again, this is a rough draft, but the plan all depends on where I can get the asphalt plant set each year, because trucking gets very expensive. I am meeting with Monarch in 2 weeks down at road school, and then also they'll be at the highway shop here after that to discuss. The new approved ATV routes on County D and F have now been signed, along with County C is also signed now, and we have sent the bill to the towns for those. I still haven't heard anything back from Round Lake on their setback ordinance for the new gravel pit we're trying to open up. RT Vision is now live. We did our first import last payroll and it was a success. We didn't have any hiccups, so that's a good thing. We're still fully staffed at the highway department, including night watchman, and his hours again are 8 to 6, Thursday night through Monday morning. We actually have him coming in tonight. The state does pick up the overtime. He's going to come in tonight for 4 hours just to try to keep town and K and everything opened up because of the weather.
That'd be helpful.
We do have one employee on work comp right now. He's stepping off the coal patch trailer and stepped on some material resulting in a broken foot. We have him on light duty currently. He's on light duty for another week. He'll go back to the doctor and then we'll go from there. And then again, I'll be attending Winter Road School January 22nd through the 24th in the Dells. And then also came to my attention that our bridge inspections, our contractor Core is not doing any more bridge inspections. So I actually did have an interview with another firm today, and I have another firm going to be interviewing next week. Currently, right now, we're going to have 144 inspections for 2024 with county and town. So it's going to be a dramatic jump in price compared to what we have been doing.
Is there more firms that are available to do that?
There is. I just found this out on Monday, so I've got 2 of the firms that pretty much do the counties around here. So there is more firms to look at.
There are others, but not a lot of them.
Not a lot of them, no. No. So, and that completes my report. If you have any questions.
Good job.
John, I got one for you. It's
Yeah.
kind of, it has nothing to do with your report, but it's just kind of something I noticed the other day while traveling. County Road B from 70 to 27. there's a lot of passing zones, but none of them have where they end, you know, the no passing zone, the triangles. And I passed a vehicle and actually had to end and I was right into one of those and it was kind of sketchy. I was just wondering why there's no signage for that.
That's something I guess I have to look at. That's never been brought to my attention yet, but I definitely will take a look into that.
Yeah, it's just I would guess I wouldn't have noticed it either if I didn't come up on that hill and all of a sudden there was the no passing zone. But you know how when you come over a hill, you can see them way up there where it ends, and there's none of those on B.
I will look into that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, let's move on to letter B, holiday hours.
All right, I'll take that. I guess I wanted to share this with the committee. This is not normally something we would necessarily bring to the committee. It's more of an HR issue, but it's specific to our highway department and potentially some of the highway department members have reached out to the committee. So, and I don't know the total history on this. I think it's been a sore spot with the employees at the highway department for a number of years, especially when they're working 410s year round. And I know that's maybe been seasonal in the past, but they're working 410s year round. The issue is that, you know, the county offers a benefit package, which includes paid holidays. That's consistent amongst all employees, that we have 11 paid holidays and they're all paid at 8 hours a day. And that includes, well, it does not include EMS, but in the sheriff, I mean, they have to work their holidays. So they're actually paid out the 11 holidays and then they work, they get paid as well. For the highway crew, they get 8 hours, but they make their days, because they work 410s, are 10 hours long. So they get 10 hours or 8 hours of holiday pay, and then they have to use 2 hours of vacation time to get a full paycheck. And that's because as a employer, from an HR standpoint, we expect everybody to have be in full pay status, which means if you're a 40-hour weekend employee and your timesheet comes in, it shows 40 hours either worked or vacation or sick leave. And that's a sore spot because they're essentially forced to use vacation. We have other 10-hour and 410 people in the courthouse here, but because of the nature of their jobs, they can work a couple extra hours during the holiday week to make up that time. Not really flexible at the highway department because everybody shows up to work as a crew. So that's been kind of an ongoing. I know my predecessor dealt with that. HR has been hearing that. I've heard that. And so I guess I talked to John about it, the commissioner, and gave him a couple options to take to the committee. Some of the other counties, they get the holidays paid as 10s. They get 9 holidays at 10 hours, so they get 90 hours of holiday pay, and they work 2 extra days that they don't normally work now. And it's typical that they work like Thanksgiving week now, the highway crew gets Wednesday and Thursday off. In those other counties, they work on Wednesday. And I believe the other one is the week of Good Friday, which we get off. The highway employees currently get that Thursday off. In the other counties, they work that. So that's one solution, would be to have them work 2 extra days. The other option would be to have the employees have the option of using vacation time to make full pay status or not and getting short paid. And that's the option that the employees have essentially selected. I'm not sure if John took an actual vote, but that's what has come back, that they want the option of taking vacation pay to fill out their full 40 or not doing it. So which in case during holiday weeks, they get paid 38 or 36, depending on how many hours, holiday hours are in. So I guess I wanted to bring that up because that's a significant point with the highway crew. You guys are overseeing the highway department as Public Works. That's where we're at. I mean, it's giving something to them that not the other employees have, but we're only talking about 20 hours, or 22 hours in a year. I don't know if John has anything else that he picked up from the employees.
No, as we pretty much explained it.
I have a question. Are they allowed comp time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they could use that 2 hours of comp time to fill out the rest of that day?
They can use the comp time or their vacation time
Yep.
to fill out the 2 hours.
And
Yep.
how much comp time are they allowed to bank?
80.
8? Comments, Brian? He likes that when I do that to him.
It's a difficult one for sure. But you know, if they're, you always got to worry, well, not that it's a total thing you worry about, but you know, you got to keep morale high. You got to make things right for all employees. You know, everybody else gets 8 hours. So, you know, if in fact they're working 10 hours, they want to use 2 hours of their comp time. I mean, it's not like they're not going to accrue it within the next.
Right. I should say the issue is that they have to right now. They don't get a choice. They're forced to use that to have a full 40-hour week. And what they've said is they want the option. They can take 2 hours of comp or PTO to fill out their 40, or they don't and they get short paid.
Right.
This is not, we're in the midst of still the PTO discussion. This is totally entirely separate. This, I mean, it came up as part of the feedback from the highway department, but the issues are actually separate.
But shouldn't that missing time be up there to their director anyway, whether or not they're allowed to be gone in the first place? To come up short on hours?
The reason they would come up short is that, like, let's just use a week where there's a vacation day. They would have 30 hours of work time, and then they get 8 hours of holiday. So they're only at 38 hours.
Oh, got it.
Okay.
Okay, my comment is, if they're working a 40-hour week, shouldn't they get 10 hours for that day off?
Well, that's one school of thought. That would mean then if we did that, they would get 110 hours of holiday pay, and the rest of the employees are getting 88. So we do try to keep it equivalent.
I think it's only fair to pay them the 10 hours they normally work, though, if that's their normal schedule.
Well, that's why administrators brought it to us so we can discuss it and see what we want to do.
Mhm.
Mr. Peters, you have a comment?
Well, having the comp time, I think, is a real value in here, so they don't have to use their vacation time as part of and lose that. So that compensatory time, I think, is an important consideration. And I guess I would like to see that encouraged with regard to getting a full paycheck on those weeks when there are vacation or when there are holiday periods. That's,
Yep.
I don't know.
Thank you. Are we directed to take action on this?
It's a motion. Yeah.
So
I have one more comment, please.
yes,
Yeah, like I said, I just have kind of heartburn on the fact that, you know, everybody works 5 days a week, they get the 40 hours. They work 4 days a week to get the 40 hours. And then in a sense, I understand what the administrator is saying that, you know, they be getting in a sense more comp time, but then they be getting it right the way they currently is, or what you're saying, I believe, is that they, in order to get that 40-hour week, they have to use some of their current comp time. And I don't know, I just want to, that's all I gotta say, I guess.
Yeah, and just to be clear on the change now would be they could continue to use comp or vacation to make a full 40, or they could choose not to and be paid for 38 instead of being mandated to use comp time or paid time to make up the full 40.
maybe touch again. I'll try to keep it balanced across all the next one.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, and this is a discussion I have with the highway employees. We do try to treat everybody the same. Everybody, I should say most employees now are at 40-hour work weeks. And so that's why we try to keep the vacation, sick, PTO proposal, and the holiday hours all equivalent. So 40-hour workers are treated the same. If you work 35-hour schedule, you have a lesser accrual, but you get treated equivalent across the board.
I think my last comment on this, I just want to make sure, so I understand. So the regular 40-hour week people that work 5 days a week, they get the same amount of comp time. So these guys would be using their comp time if they wanted to, as you say, to make the 40 hours instead of getting 38 hours a week if they were took a vacation day, correct?
Correct. Right now, they have to fill out to get to full 40. The change would allow them to do it or not do it.
Well, I guess the bottom line is we have to make a decision whether we're gonna allow them to work 38 hours if they so choose, or supplement to the 40 hours of vacation or comp time, whichever their choice is.
I guess just one question on that. Do 40-hour a week, 8-hour day employees, do they accrue comp time also?
They're allowed to accrue comp time as well.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, they can't, I mean, if people are working beyond their 40 in a week to accrue comp, it's with the direction of the supervisor.
I'm sorry, I can't hear what the individual
Brian,
cited.
Mike, please. Thank you.
I don't want to assume anything, but I'm assuming the highway staff probably has the opportunity to accrue a lot more comp than anybody else.
They do and they don't. I guess maybe one thing you might be thinking is anytime they work outside of their regular schedule, they're paid overtime. So like we just had a discussion today, if they come in at 4:30 to start plowing, they get paid overtime from 4:30 to 6:30. Then they get their regular time from 6:30 to 4:30. And if they have to keep on plowing, then anytime after 4:30, it's on overtime. Same thing if they have to come in and plow on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's all overtime. Doesn't matter how many hours they've worked in the week.
So how is comp time accrued then?
So the employee has the option, anything outside their working hours, to accrue comp time at time and a half, because it's overtime. That's how they accrue it. They can either get paid the overtime or accrue up to their 80 hours at time and a half. They were looking for the option if they had to use the 2 hours to make up their 40-hour week, on the 2 hours on holiday pay. They wanted that flexibility, is what it came down to when I asked.
Well, I think from my perspective,
Brian, could you use your mic? Brian? Thank you.
you know, it's John's responsibility as a supervisor to iron this out, not us.
No, I brought it here because quite frankly, it's an important issue to them. I know that. And it's doing something we haven't done for any other employees. So I want to put that out in the open. But you're right, it is an HR issue and a payroll issue.
So would a motion be to accept the plan that has been approved by your meeting with the road employees?
I think that's appropriate motion.
Yes, I agree.
Let's spell it out what it is.
It allows them to voluntarily use PTO, not PTO, or it's paid time off. It's
Yeah.
vacation or comp time to complete a 40-hour week during a holiday week,
Or choose
or
to
choose not to.
use the 38 hours instead of 40. It's their choice.
I can't say it any better than the administrator has already done, but I would make that motion.
Thank you.
And I will second.
So there's a motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Bissonette to approve that the employees can use comp time or vacation time to make their 40 hours on holidays, or choose to get paid the 38 hours if that's their choice. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
I,
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Letter C, out-of-county highway department vehicles review and discussion possible action, which relates to, if I may, similar to the Public Safety Committee, is dealing with Sheriff's Department. Now, I went and looked for the minutes so I could be fresh in my mind, but they weren't posted. So I wanted to know, but, maybe you can help us out, Mr. Administrator, please.
Sure. So yes, there's been some discussion. Hang on, Mr. Coffin. Yeah, there's been some discussion in the last month regarding the subject of take-home vehicles that are assigned to county employees when they live outside the county. We have take-home assigned vehicles in the highway department and in the sheriff's department with the deputies that have squads. There was a public safety, initially it was in public safety discussion, and then we had a joint public safety admin meeting to discuss this topic. And the motion that came out of that was specific to sheriff department employees, deputies that live outside the county are, per that motion, would be allowed to take home their squads up to 25 miles outside of the county. And then they essentially drive those to work. When they get to the county line, they radio in and they're on duty and to perform their duties. That is, and the reason it was brought forward was, I think, from the employees primarily that are affected. They presented information at the meeting from how the rest of the department feels about it, and we put together this information as well, how many surrounding counties allow this type of use of the vehicles. It's a competitive reason for retaining and attracting employees, that type of thing. Current policy in our policy manual prohibited that activity, We do have a residency requirement for deputies. They have to live within 25 miles of the county line. However, if an employee does not reside within the county boundaries, the squad car must remain within the county boundaries. Okay, so that's why it's taking these meetings to change policy, establish new policy. It'll go to the county board. It is on for tomorrow's finance and admin meetings because there is a financial impact for a budget amendment. And then admin, it's an HR policy currently that has to be changed. All right.
Potentially has to be changed.
Potentially has to be changed. Correct.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes,
I just want to state that I was at that public safety meeting and we heard from many of the officers that, and I believe we have 6 that live out in county, and that they were all. We have one that's right within that mileage there, that's 23 miles. But I would just like to make a motion, the same motion that was made in the public safety, that the officers are allowed to take their vehicle out of county within 25 miles.
thank you. So Mr. Helwig made a motion that,
I think he said officers.
yeah.
Do you want me to keep explaining or do you want to look for a second?
Mr. Helwig, let's let Mr. Alvarado explain a little more here, please.
Okay, I apologize.
Thank you.
Sorry. So getting to why we're talking about it tonight is that the policy says sheriff's deputies have a residency requirement because we can't not have a residency requirement on any other employees, only deputies and EMS. And the policy prohibited them from having the cars outside the county line. The other policy we have applying to this is that there is a commuting for sheriff and highway department employees that does allow the use of county vehicles for the purposes of commuting between an employee's residence and principal place of work, provided that it's in the best interest of the county and requires department director and county administrator approval. And there's more language, but that's the nuts and bolts of it. So there's nothing specific to highway department employees working outside or living outside of the county, taking their vehicles home like there is sheriff deputies. Essentially, the way our policies actually read is I believe I could have just told the commissioner and our operations manager, the 2 employees, you can take your cars. They both do live outside the county. I was under the understanding, without having dug into the personnel manual, when we hired Mr. Pino, I told him that you have a county vehicle, but you can't leave the county because that was the policy. But so initially after the meeting last month, I told John to go ahead and take his car home. And then I thought about it for a day and said, please bring it back so we can have this discussion. I don't want to go rogue on the committee. I think the general opinion of staff and the board was that we don't allow county vehicles to go home outside the county. So I wanted to have that discussion here with you, similar to the one we just had about holiday hours. I'll just give us more information. It's pretty commonplace for those individuals and other departments to have assigned vehicles and to have them, if they live outside the county, be able to take them home. Now, some counties have a mile restriction on it. Some look at it a case by case basis. And that's what, if you want to allow this, I would like the committee to take an action to affirm that. So we have that backing. Like I said, this is going to end up at the board meeting next week in general. I think the biggest thing is when we talk about this, to look at what's the benefit to the county. They have assigned vehicles because they are on the roads a lot. They are going to job sites. They're the highway department. So I think it does make sense. And to me, it makes the most sense to look at this on a case by case basis. John and Tim both live within 15 miles of the county line. I think that's reasonable. I told John today, like, if we have to hire a new highway commissioner next year, we're not going to, because he's going to be here. And they live 50 miles away. To me, that's a employment discussion. Okay, yeah, you can have a county vehicle, but we might adjust the salary or adjust the terms and look at it on a case by case basis, because there is only 2 employees, and we can look at it that way because they're not responding emergent. I think that's the separate discussion with the sheriff's deputies, is they potentially are responding in a different way than John and Tim or those positions.
I would disagree with that part.
Okay.
I would say they are emergency vehicles because they are responding. Look at the snow. Everybody drove in tonight. The roads are full of snow. That's their job, to do the best that they can do to monitor the roads, to make them safe for the public. To me, that's emergency management. And I believe they should have their vehicles. They're on call 24 hours a day. They don't get paid on call 24 hours a day. The crew that works with him, under him, they're on call 24 hours a day. They know if there's a storm that they're probably going to have to go out. They know if we have a windstorm in the middle of summer and it's full of rain, they're probably going to have to go out and patrol water and clean the roads, because that's their job. To me, they're emergency management.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Well, then, I think by your statement, you could almost say that all those employees are emergency management. Because in all reality, the supervisor, he comes in and then he contacts everybody and says, hey, we need you to come in and do this, this, and this. He's not necessarily going out and doing that. So I don't want to sound, I don't know, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I hear what you're saying. Thank you. That's good, because there's 2 sides to every story.
Exactly. Oh, I just wanted to say that the reason I said officers in my motion was, as Andy stated, in the public works discussion, it was only on the officers, not the highway department. I'm sorry.
Yes. Does the committee have more things they'd like to discuss regarding this?
What is the motion we're entertaining?
Well, Mr. Helwig started to make a motion, but I kind of interrupted him, so presently there's not a motion. Unless Mr. Helwig wants to move forward.
Unless you want to make another motion?
Well, we haven't completed the first one, my friend.
This is true. So I guess I will state at this time, I'd like to make a motion that the county law enforcement officers are allowed to take their vehicles outside of the county within 25 miles.
Mr. Helwig, I think for this committee, we're just wanting to focus on the 2 highway department employees that live outside the county.
Oh, I apologize. All right. I thought we started with the police officers and
Yep,
then just kind of brought in the other guys.
So the motion is for the highway commissioner and patrol superintendent to take their vehicles home within how many miles?
Well,
25.
if I had a choice, I would say these 2 that we have right now, and if we have to replace them,
Yeah,
you
good
can
point.
take that up.
Case by case basis.
Yep.
Does that sound reasonable, Mr. Helwig?
Well, I still kind of like the 25-mile radius, and then as Andy says, maybe, maybe to go on a case by case basis in the future. I don't know.
Yeah, we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second Mr. Helwig's motion.
Thank you. Mr. Helwig made a motion that the patrol superintendent and the highway commissioner can take their vehicles home up to 25 miles away from the county on a case-by-case basis with negotiation with administrator. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I just
Yes.
mention one thing? We'll probably end up revisiting parts of that along with the deputies. And I don't think you need to do anything here because I think it's going to be a wholesale discussion. But the motion last week was 25 miles. But nobody specified whether it's, nope, like, is it 25 miles by road? Or are we drawing a line from the county line into the county? So there is a significant
Yeah.
difference. So we'll have to take that up at some point.
At least we have a starting point that we can move forward from. We can always make adjustments as needed. Okay. Number 12, courthouse remodel update. Dedication and ribbon cutting. Not tonight.
I wanted to put that on there because we had kind of lost track of it and talked about it last time. We are, just to tell you where we're at, obviously still the AV work.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, coincidentally, the AV work is not completed yet. That's why there's no speakers in this room. They're scheduled to come in before the end of the month. I think it's next week and the week after. To finish out the AV back-ordered equipment in the courtrooms and in this room. They're here Thursday, Friday to work on the cabinets. There's some cabinets back there in the courtroom that the laminate is not holding. So that's on the punch list. And then still the floor and the entryway. And then the HVAC. There was a meeting today between the engineers and the programmer or controlling people and the installation of the HVAC because we have I guess I'll call it a balancing issue. You get negative and positive pressure, which creates a whistling sound and makes it difficult to appropriately heat or cool. So they're working on that. Those are our major punch list items. What's left? We're winding down the contract and paying down up to a point where we have enough retainer to make sure those things get done. So we are getting closer there. But then I guess the basic question with dedication ribbon cutting is do you want to do that? I'd suggest if you do, we start looking at a date like in May, just to,
I think we should.
and do you want a plaque in the entryway with,
Yes.
okay, I'll get something drawn up for that and bring it back to the committee for approval.
So we'll come back to the public works before we move on.
Yep.
And I think probably the month of May would probably be a good time. And even if you're an out board member, you still should come. All right. Anything else? Future agenda items? Well, the airport's always going to be on here. We're going to talk more about the master plan. There's always going to be things coming from the highway department. And the maintenance does a wonderful job of keeping us abreast of what's going on. Anybody want to add anything? Yes.
I just didn't know if Andy, you were gonna touch on those permits here tonight or not.
Yeah, we don't have it on the agenda, but I did update John that the
Okay.
council is working on the permits and getting them drafted in ordinance. And then there's another item that we're throwing into this for the John's leadership at the highway department wants to start looking at taking on some work from townships, municipalities. To do that, we have to have a county board ordinance approved on the books to allow that. So that's coming back. I'll come back as a resolution next month.
That has been done in the past when the town hires you to do stuff. Okay.
No, it has been done, but I found that we don't have this in our ordinance, which we need.
Right.
So let's, if you can get it through council, maybe we can have an agenda, Lynn, next month.
Yeah, put it on for next month. The other future agenda item, it's a March thing, but I want to make sure I say it now so Lynn can hold us for the March 5th master plan public information workshop. We're going to post that as a public works meeting so that if a quorum of you attend,
Oh,
we're covered.
And-
It's, it, I don't know what day it is.
it is a Tuesday at 5:30.
Yeah, our time will carry over. So we'll have an hour before.
No,
No.
it's a separate day, but we just need to post it as a
It
public.
has to be
meeting.
posted because there potentially could be and will be a quorum of the public works, so it has to be noted. You had a question?
Previous meeting or two, it said that this, couple meeting would be in February.
That was the thoughts, yes.
That's what you had said. And now it's March fifth.
Hold on, we can't hear that.
I'll relay it to you.
Okay, thank you.
March fifth. There are some vital members of our group that are tied up doing something on the fifth. Is that date optional that we could change it to a time that looks better?
The question is, in the past, we talked about having the meeting for the master plan at the end of February, not setting a date. Now we're tentatively looking at the date of March 5th. And now there seems to be some conflicts with some of the, may I call it the landowners? Okay.
I believe it'll be available via Zoom. We'll have a link to be able to attend virtually. Another thing I think that we could do is if folks wanted to email the consultant their concerns directly and have dialogue that way, I think that could happen at any time.
And we'll also be having a second meeting.
Yeah, that's
Correct.
yeah. May, June timeframe is the 5th. Is it specific to that date or that week?
Specific to that date.
Okay. We can have a conversation with the consultant and see if there is any wiggle room. They do come in from out of state, so I don't know what their schedule is.
So we'll communicate them, see what we can learn. Okay, that help? Anybody else have anything else? Meeting adjourned. Thank you for your valuable time. Drive home safely.